Thank you for joining me again. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and even more of a pleasure when I have one of my dear friends on with me to discuss an anniversary that in many ways we don't want to be here for, but it is important that we are. So I'm just going to bring on David Sumrall from stophate.com. David, my brother, lovely to see you. How are you?
Happy Patriot Day to you, my friend. I'm sorry that we have to meet under these circumstances, but I tell you, it's a day to remember our heroes, and it's up to us to do that and do it well.
I couldn't agree with you more. And alluding to the fact that there are anniversaries for a reason. The word, there is an anniversary where we look at it as a way of celebration. This is an anniversary that does not have a celebratory bow around it at all. And the fact that in many ways, I can't believe that 3 years on that we are having this conversation.
Well, it's a solemn reminder of the state that we live in. I mean that literally and figuratively. And solemn being serious, and a memorial, a reminder. This is something that 9/11, never forget. Are you kidding me? This is something that should be seared into the memory of every American from a historical perspective. From now on, we should study this. We should come back to this day over and over, because never before have we had this kind of attack against the American citizenry itself on such a scale by our own government. We've always fought for freedom. Who thought we would have to fight our own government for freedom? That's an amazing concept.
I couldn't agree more with you. And David, we're reflecting also in 2 days' time. You and I had a seminal interview.
Yeah.
We had a seminal conversation. I know that in many ways every year we go back to that, but there is it's very important. It's important for both of us, but we feel it's important to convey this. And I want to say this publicly. Every single thing that you said that happened on that day and how the events have unfolded afterwards have proven that you were absolutely right. And I'm not saying it's about, I'm proud to be right. That's the last thing, because you have seen, I know some of these individuals, we've seen people arrested for exercising their constitutional rights.
Well, Mark,
sorry.
Let me just jump in there and say, I mean, you're right. But there's a reason that I got everything right in our interview after January 6th. I mean, 2 days later, it was still fresh on my mind. And here's the difference. You can't get that kind of guttural reaction or that feel for the day from someone who was not there. They don't know, and they have to fill in the blanks in a different way. People that were there, that experienced it, that witnessed it, we didn't ever shy away from the facts of the day. It's just taken 3 years for the public to hear them and accept them as far as we have so far. But the stories haven't changed because the timeline hasn't changed. The day hasn't changed. What happened. And the ones of us that witnessed it, that came back and said, it was a setup, it was a definite setup. And nobody understands if they weren't there because they didn't witness it. They didn't experience it. So it was easy, especially if you're used to those environments or rallies, or if you have an idea of how the media is going to spin something, you can get ahead of it as best you can. And that's what we've tried to do for January 6th ever since.
You have, because in writing history in Bloody Hill, and now the latest film has come out. The real timeline, the proper timeline that you have been going on about, and I'm not just saying this because you're a dear friend. I'm saying this for the amount of work that you have put in. You are the expert of this subject, in as far as I'm concerned, in the world. That particular film that's come out has got all your 3 years of your work in it. Everyone, you know as well as I do, everyone thinks, you make a movie, it's dead easy. It is not. The amount of effort, etc., that goes into that, and the fact that, David, it's taken 3 years. One of the reasons why it's taken 3 years is that because the censorship, my friend.
Absolutely, Mark. And listen, this is the way you can know that what we say is true.
Mm.
The stories, the timeline, the video, the evidence.
Mm.
Yeah, we've gathered a little more over 3 years. It's been a steady work at consolidating and studying all this video evidence that's been released by the government, that's been released, body cam footage, more public footage. People keep dropping videos that are useful. But the censorship issue, like I said, it's the same stories that we've put out. This latest movie is a timeline film, so it's chronological. It goes through the day, and everyone says, hey, this is the first, timeline film. This is the first time that you've ever been able to see, January 6th the way it is. But actually, we put the same movie out in June of 2021, minus the CCTV, minus the body cams, and it was built solely with video from the public, from our own cell phones and cameras, and what we could procure from the internet, what our own film crews and friends filmed that day. And we put writing history out on the anniversary of Tiananmen Square to try to drive the point home that we had the same exact thing happen as did in China 20 plus years ago, in that the government attacked peaceful pro-democracy protesters and literally blamed them for the event, murdered them, threw them in prison, and have tried to sweep it under the rug systematically with the use of their best friends in the media. And that's what happened in China, in Tiananmen Square. And to this day, you're not allowed to talk about it. And that's the control of that authoritarian dictatorship that Biden is trying to exercise on the good people of America. And I challenge them, go watch this film, J6, A True Timeline, and then go back, since you never knew about it, and watch Writing History. Now, this latest film is very non-biased. It's middle of the road. It's more of a historical perspective. Paul, the director, had said that he wanted his 11-year-old son to be able to understand. And I think that's a great way to put it. And for history's sake, this will be something people can look back and get a non-political perspective of the timeline of events that day, which is remarkable. But if you want the emotion, if you want to hear the people plead with the police, if you want to hear and see only what it was like from a J6er's perspective, go watch Writing History, available free at stop8.com, like the rest of the work we do. But I want people to understand that, after 2 years, after 2.5 years, we're seeing these other journalists run with stories. We're seeing people, get massive shares and follows. And we're still locked in where we were and thinking, why can we not get this information out? So AJ Fisher, that has worked alongside stop8.com for about a year, he came and said, hey, let's do a timeline film. And of course, Daniel and myself, we're like, we're ready. We've been building the evidence. We've been keeping everything. We want to do Writing History too. But if you're doing a project, we'll get in with you, because here's what happened. We turned over 3 years worth of evidence, worth of research, with the video. And of course, working with the families, with the defendants, with the lawyers, we have a different understanding of not only the events that happened that day, but how it has affected what became important, even more so, out of the video that was captured. So we turned all of our research over, and we were the researching arm and the consulting arm on the timeline. But what's interesting, Mark, is when I took all this information and gave it to this editor, Paul, and he put this film together, he built the same thing we built in June of 21. It's the same film from a slightly different perspective, but not much, because it's the same timeline. But the Writing History, man, I really, not to beat it up too much, we made a couple mistakes in it. It was early on, but it was not critical mistakes. We still talked about the deaths. We still talked about the brutality, the violence, the grenades, the police letting people move about freely. All the things that were covered in this last film were censored from the public for the last 2 years. And so I'm excited to, kind of have this experiment come full circle. And, in 3 years, Mark, we've had, last time I checked, 236,000 views on Rumble on Writing History. But I'm happy to say that the day on New Year's night, when the ball dropped, we dropped this film a couple hours. And in one day, it got more views than Writing History got in almost 2.5 years. So I'm really excited that the experiment part worked, that the story is actually getting to the public, that it's presented in such a way to where it's not a Trump film, it's not a Biden film.
No.
It's just kind of, here's what happened that day, see for yourself. And the response has been absolutely amazing. Congressmen love it. Attorneys want to enter it into the record for court evidence. We've got a really great interview coming up Monday. I'm not even going to say with who yet, but we will definitely be talking about that again. And I'm excited because this is what we've tried to do quite unsuccessfully for almost 3 years today. And finally, we're seeing the light, at the end of the tunnel, a little, Mark. And it's very rewarding to know that, even behind the scenes, even the unsung hero, nobody's going to, know our names at the end of this, and that's fine. But we have been critically important in getting the truth to the people in a very big way. And I could not be more proud of, Daniel Goodwin on my crew, Taylor Hanson, JD, John, all the guys, Tamara Lee, of course, who has been by our side, but these new guys that are on this other film project, Paul Escandon, Jason Rink, and AJ Fisher. Everybody has a skill and a specialty. They all brought their talents in for this project, and now we're going to see what the world thinks of it.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about writing history, absolutely right. Because at the beginning of that, let's just remind ourselves where the patriots are going, we back the blue. And then bang, and then you show the picture. And I've forgotten the gentleman's name of that, basically a rubber bullet, had gone into his mouth, and there it is sitting there. I'm not saying that just for gory effect. I'm not just saying that to go, yes, David, yes. It genuinely is, yes, David. Well, because you've done that. You've done the work.
Well, and that's the thing, the stories that people don't know. So you look at the Joshua Matthew Black is the guy you're talking about. He's in prison. He's serving a 2-year sentence or whatnot. And he ended up inside the chamber, sitting down, on the phone, trying to, talk. I don't even know, but he was hurt. And Jake Chansley saw him in there and said, wow, you got blood on your face. God bless you and all that. That's in the movie as well. But the story that people don't know is how J6 started. And honestly, we've been working on this true timeline film for about a year, and we set several deadlines out, and we're not able to make them. And it's a good thing. And this is how God works. There was more video, there was more evidence, there were more drops. Sedition Hunters made a big drop, and we got a lot of body cam and a lot of stuff that we could not publish, although we have access to it. The DOJ won't let me publish anything, but hey, Sedition Hunters that works with them, I guess, can and did. So we had to add all this stuff. But here's my point. One of our release dates was October 3rd. And I believe that's what the date was. It was the anniversary of the 1,000 days since January 6th, the 1,000 days of terror that we've suffered as a people, as a community, as a family at the hand of the DOJ and the FBI. So on the 1,000th day anniversary, I said, we are not coming without a film. And okay, the timeline film's not ready, I understand, but we're putting something out. So we did the deep dive on mainly the Massey report that we put together for Massey's office. But AJ Fisher was on the West Side on January 6th. So he's our West Side specialist. And of course, he's chased the less than lethal force timeline. So when Daniel and I were researching, we saw Inspector Lloyd look up to the top and give the signal to fire on the people. That was the very first time anyone ever saw the command to start the violence. The question had already been, who threw the first punch? Who fired the first shot, basically? And so when we found that, man, it opened up a whole different view to us from the power down through the ranks in the police. And then when we got their radio communications, and you've got Inspector Lloyd and Waldo and all these guys barking orders, we need less than lethal team up here to mark these protesters. Launch, launch, launch. So in short, we took about a 20-minute window from January 6th, and we put that into a 5.5-minute film. And let me just say, if you don't know how it started, you can't argue either way, because we've always said if you come in halfway through a fight, you can't tell who started it. You don't know what's going on. Violence looks like violence. You know what else looks like violence, Mark? Self-defense.
Yes.
And these people were standing peacefully.
Yes.
The whole crowd on their megaphones. We're here to redress our grievances. Please don't shoot us. Please don't spray us, because the cops are already setting up. They were getting all their stuff. Everybody's standing there watching, saying, please don't shoot us. Please don't spray us. But what did the cops do? They shot us and sprayed us. So they kicked this off. We show this in the movie, and it is undeniable, Mark. It is irrefutable. It is fact that there was a peaceful crowd, not a violent mob, that was spurred into being violent after an hour of barrage attacks from these police with grenades, rubber bullets, tear gas, smoke bombs. And in 5.5 minutes, we can show you more in a film than anyone in the media has shown you for 3 years.
Yes, because from the shouts of "we back the blue, we black the blue," then the rubber bullet comes in. But if we go back to 1,000 Days of Terror, and I've talked about this with you and off camera privately, where there's that gentleman on there that looks very, very respectable. I think it was either in some kind of purple top, and he just turned around and he said, "The police started it. They started firing into the crowd. They started doing this." But of course, on this journey, which has been so painful and at times so appalling, if we look at what happened to dear Roseanne Boyland and how long that took to, in one sense, to get that out, you were out there, as you said, from June 21. And let's remember the names. You know, we've got dear Ashley Babbitt, we've got Kevin Greigson, we've got Benjamin Phillips and Roseanne Boyland, and then Officer Signick, which that's 5 deaths. But the fact that it took so long to push this, and especially with what the accusations against Roseanne and what she had physically been through, and then suddenly there is the footage of the police officers' uniforms off their body cam.
Well, and this is the thing. So let's look back on this at a 3-year glance. In the first year, Taylor Hanson and myself, he was next to Ashley when she was murdered by Michael Leroy Bird. We went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th on the first reunion to take Ashley's mom as close to where her daughter had died as possible. She couldn't go inside. She couldn't get permission to be where she was. But we went on the grounds. We went on the stairs. We went, up to the Capitol so she could at least be close to where her daughter left this earth. On the first year, there was not much talk about any of the victims except Ashley Babbitt. Now, we had already put our film out. We had already done our posters, our flyers, declared Patriot Day, put out the first documentary, and had pushed this story so hard. But that censorship, so the second year, when the public was more aware, we were actually hearing people already calling it Patriot Day, people we don't even know. So that stuck, that caught on. People are literally calling it J6, and now we're in the third year. The second year, people knew about the other victims. They might not have known the complete stories. But what happened on January 6th afterwards was the media was quick to say Roseanne Boyland died of a drug overdose.
Yes.
Kevin Greigson had a heart attack or tased himself, or Benjamin Phillips, had a medical emergency way out parking the bus. He wasn't even a part of the mob. That's what they literally said. So literally being there, I set out to prove those wrong, or to at least find the truth if they were, which they weren't. Roseanne Boyland didn't die of a drug overdose. She was gassed, probably to death. trampled, possibly to death, and beaten maybe to death by Officer Lila Morris. I'm not a medical expert. I can't tell you the exact time of death or what the exact cause was, but I know that trying to resuscitate her while a policewoman is beating her with a stick is probably impossible. So I don't know if she could have been saved. I don't know why nobody understood that story and why people wrote it off as a drug overdose. The other guys, Kevin and Benjamin. So Benjamin Phillips was there. He was part of the mob. So they lied about that as well to try to throw us off the trail. So we couldn't find out what happened. And for the first year, we really thought, because of the vicinity that he went down in and the witness confusion. Now you have to understand, Kevin and Benjamin crossed paths.
Right.
They were at the same basic location. They look about the same, both kind of reddish hair, kind of heavy set. So people saw these guys. They didn't really understand how they got there, what happened. You've got people giving them CPR. You've got other people that saw them along the way. So we had some conflicting reports, even from witnesses who were confused because there was two bodies. So after the second year in January, we were watching some footage, and all these compilations on social media would show different angles of the bodies, when they were taking them through the crowd on the stretchers or on the racks when people were carrying them, or when they were just lifting their body up and carrying them through. So you were seeing compilations. It turns out there were two different people in some of those videos. And the way I figured that out was their shoes.
Yes. Yeah.
So literally we had to find an angle where they were carrying Benjamin Phillips out of the park to identify his shoes, because he had black and red shoes on. Kevin Greason had tan boots on. So when you just get down to the soul of the matter, that's how we found out, yes, Benjamin Phillips was a part of the mob. He was right there, but he was not a victim of the hand grenades like we had previously thought. He literally had a medical emergency just a few minutes after that first gate push. As he was turning the corner down front, he face planted. The crime comes when you find out that he was not rendered aid. The medics would not come in. They would not service him. They would not treat him. One policeman or two tried to help give CPR for 15 minutes, 20 minutes? I mean, what are the odds of survival at that point? So he was declared dead later. But during that time, as soon as they moved him out, here comes Kevin Greason's body carrying him through the crowd. So when you listen to the EMS reports, they said that they had a heart attack in the crowd. So they finally got this one heart attack victim. The people ended up bringing him on a barricade.
Yes. Yeah.
And when they got him in the ambulance, someone banged on the door and said, "We got a heart attack out there." They said, "No, we got him in the wagon already." No, there's another one. So there was so much confusion with law enforcement, with the EMS teams, with access to danger elements. In the end of the EMS video they put out, they said, it was so violent and people saying the N-word and all these hateful things, but none of us got hurt. None of us got hurt. It was real. But you also didn't save any of your victims. You're such losers and scumbags for not saving anybody. You had 4 people to save. You had one job and you couldn't even do that. And then you're going to blame us. You say, "I've never heard a crowd so angry." Well, you've never had a crowd that just witnessed people be murdered by police. So, when you get into the nuance and you find out what happened behind the scenes, these murders, I would not let it lie. I just
no, and you haven't, and thank God that you have not, because you're absolutely right. When people got angry, patriots, people, as I've said, support the Blues, support veterans. They are passionate about their country. They believe in it, and so they then went along there to exercise their constitutional rights. The fact that the police had forgotten that you do not live in a representative constitutional republic, they suddenly were reprogrammed into the fact that you were living in a communist state run by a particular a dictator, who then has found himself as resident in the White House in fraudulent means. And before anyone says, "No, that's not true," the evidence has unfolded over the last 3 years like no other.
Well, I can tell you the best way to keep people from finding out the truth is to make it where they can't talk about it. And we know the censorship on one hand. There's another hand, and it's in the courts. And people really aren't aware of what this looks and feels like. But let me give you an example. The First Amendment is the right to free speech, the right to assemble, the right to redress your grievances to your government, the right to a free press. But you know what happens when you get to Washington, D.C. for your court case? The prosecution puts a motion in that you cannot use the First Amendment in your defense. You cannot say you were there to protest, you were there to exercise your free speech, you were there to assemble, you were there to redress your grievances. You can't use that in your trials because they want to interject your intent. They want to be able to say that if you were there at all, you were there to overthrow the government, and that's it, and that's what you have to defend against. We've seen this time and time again. It's standard protocol. But not only can you not tell the truth on social media, you can't even defend yourself and tell the truth in court. That's why they have the convictions. That's why they have the numbers they have. People can't fight this. They bend the knee. It's either 20 plus years in jail for bogus charges or take a year or two and get some probation and get out from under the knee of this guy, because they're going to crush you to death, take your life, kill your family, do everything they can to destroy you. And they've proven it over and over. 1,200 plus arrests so far. They want 2,000 more. They usually get what they want. They got their 200 million funding so they can keep going after J6ers. And everyone in the whole Congress is saying, oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fine. And you know, we're finding out real quick, Mark, nobody up there, you know, we might have 2 friends in Congress, maybe a friend or 2 in Senate. And that's about it. You know, honestly, we've been disserviced, you know, not served at all for the last 3 years. I think that no taxation without representation really applies. And I think that especially J6ers should be able to go back and not pay taxes for the last 3 years and keep the money that they are paid by the government for their hard times that they've experienced. I mean, it's really bad, but you know, I don't know what we can do to get the public properly outraged other than to show them, you know, what happened that day and let them see for themselves. And then when they find out how bad they've been lied to, maybe they'll be pissed off. That'll be great.
Well, my advice is that they ought to watch Biden's latest bid for president video, which I find the most divisive, nasty piece of work that I have ever seen. And of course, it comes out of the sort of Emperor Palpatine impersonation that he did a few months ago in front of 2 Marines and the red lights to the left and the right, and it looks very, very dark. It's an outrage, frankly, what he has pushed through. You know as well as I do in some of my research, you know, when they're pushing, you know, the rise of white nationalism is a threat to our democracy and all this, and they keep pushing the word democracy. I will shut up over this little rant in a second, because you are not a democracy. You are a representative constitutional republic. And as soon as people get to grips with that, the better. But look at it's that programming. Oh, this is a threat. This is a threat. You said it. You said it when Kamala Harris listed, we can't forget this, we can't forget that. And you're going, no, we cannot forget Jan 6, because look at what the foundations that it has tried to take away, even more so within our country. Sorry. Well,
these idiots telegraph their moves. And I don't know, some people say they have to so that it's a permission thing or some kind of satanic spell or whatever. Hey, you know, I wouldn't doubt any of that at this point. But I know that, you know, the racist element of January 6th has been widely overlooked because conservatives have tried to stay ahead of the fray and say, we're not racist. So don't make this a racist event. Guess what? It was a completely racist event, just not by those people, by the other people that were already inside the building. That's the government, the media, and all those policemen that did horrible things to innocent people because they bought the lie that these are white nationalists, or they're skinhead neo-Nazi, you know, they're going to eat every black person, and, you know, whatever. And these idiots believed it. And let me just go back so everybody's familiar. Fear plus ignorance equals racism. They were scared because of what they've been told for years. They're ignorant because they believed it and didn't find out for themselves. And they're racist because if you look at Roseanne Boyland, Ashley Babbitt, Derek Vargo, we can go on, all white protesters, all killed or maimed by black policemen. And I'm not trying to play the racist card here. I'm just exposing it for what it is, because there are charges that should go along with those crimes that would set a precedent so it wouldn't happen again. And maybe if somebody addressed the fact that nobody on our side in the Congress or Senate will defend us when they say stupid things like white nationalist. It's the dumbest load of crap I've ever seen. We don't have a problem with hatred. We're the most inclusive society today in our history. You think about it for just a minute. We let all kinds of junk, stupid things happen, and we just turn the other way. We may not agree with it. We may not support it. We may not condone it, but we don't even want to mess with it. And we let people do so much for so long. Unfortunately, that's on us too. Maybe we should have done what the Bible wanted us to do and said, no, we have to vote our convictions and our faith and our beliefs, and that's evil and that's wrong. And I'm not going to vote for you to be able to do that because nobody should be able to do that. And maybe that's the way. And then, on and on, brother, abortion, all these other things that we've really screwed up, and that's on us. But the J6 thing, that's completely on them.
Absolutely. And the other thing, which I've found, I mean, it's just appalling. If you take Enrico Torres for which I think is the classic of the fact that you are then charged with, and you weren't even there, David. Please correct me if I've said anything wrong, but you were not even there. And also, when they're accusing and when they're playing the racist card, and then we say, could you look at certain individuals that were there, or you have been joining with an event for a period of time?
Well, that's one of the things that really spurred me into super action in the beginning. Now, when I got home after January 6th, back to the hotel, we saw the reports. We saw the manhunt and this horrible thing and all this. And I was like, this is bad, guys. They're going to spin this thing. I'm glad we got our video that we got to try to, offset, but they're going to come guns loaded, literally. And, they locked the city down. They had a curfew at 6 a.m. And to this day, I say they were contemplating mass arrests. But the way this plays in is the Proud Boys. Of course, with President Trump saying, stand back and stand by, that was a big thing for them to, oh, look, he's dog whistling these guys over here, whatever. Well, there was literally no plan by the Proud Boys. We proved that a couple times. But I think the part of the story that is the most interesting, like you brought up, is Enrique Tarrio. He's the president of the Proud Boys at the time. He stepped down then, but he was already under arrest. He was banned from D.C. They told him, do not, stay away, do not pass go, whatever. He wasn't there. He was not there on January 6th.
Absolutely.
And if he had been there, they probably wouldn't have gone inside. He's a pretty good strategist, and he probably would have smelled the rat, but the leadership wasn't there. So now he's in jail for a thought crime, for guilty by association, like Ethan Nordine. I mean, some of these people, and when you find that the higher percentage than normal of these prisoners are veterans and LEO law enforcement. Now, it takes a lot for a veteran to go nuts and attack people, right? Unless he sees something wrong. And then you're going to have numbers of people coming to defend the innocent. That's what we're talking about, self-defense. A lot of these guys have violent charges when they were defending themselves or in defense of others. And when you've got thousands of people witnessing a beating or a killing, you expect them to just go on about their business? I don't think so. This is not the way it works. But when I heard Biden's speech, man, about these MAGA extremists and, how bad, and it makes you sad on one hand and it makes you laugh on the other. Once again, they're telegraphing their moves. They want us to fight each other. They want us to have a civil war. They want us to hate each other. And January 6th was an opportunity for them to use that as a divider for all the American people. And look, this is your side. This is my side. We can't talk about it. We can't have the truth about it. We can't resolve it. We're always going to think you're killers, and we're always going to think that y'all don't trust us and that we didn't do that stuff. That's exactly where they want us. And then you got characters like Ray Epps that everyone in the country is going crazy over. Why is he getting unfair treatment? Why is he this? Why is he that? And he's a Fed. No, poor guy, man. I mean, he's in a bad spot. And they're using him. They're beating him like a drum. No different than BLM. Aren't we upset that they don't do to BLM what they did to the J6ers? Sure we are.
Yeah.
Use that against us as well. It's like the principal having two kids that are in trouble And if you give one preferential treatment, don't you know the other one's going to get mad? This is what Big Brother does to us every day. And they laugh about it. And we just eat it up like we don't know the difference, because we don't. And it affects us, man. And that's where our stinking thinking, about where we are and what we're here for and what is our mission, what is our goal, and we lose focus of the January 6th heroes, for one. And we'll chase the trucker convoy, or we'll chase the Brazil thing, or we'll chase whatever comes along, because that's how we've been programmed with this 15-minute news cycle. And it's not fair to us, and we're not fair to ourselves, because we can't pay attention long enough to figure something out on our own. And then we have to have someone else tell us how we think and feel about it. I'm really sad for people, but that's both sides, brother. And the Bible's clear. Many will be deceived. It doesn't say which side they're on. It doesn't say when. Was that early? Was that in the middle? Or was that in the end? We don't know. It just says many, which is more than half, will be deceived. I believe we're halfway there right now.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's very interesting. A few days ago, there was a survey that said that the 40% of the American people are actually turning around saying something. Well, actually, no. The way the events have been reported about Jan 6 is wrong. They're believing our quite rightly, the truth narrative that we are talking about of what actually happened. And what you've just said is totally profound. I'm just going to give a call out, because it was a real privilege to do. I had a conversation with our mutual friend Patrick Riley the other day, and Patrick may not be politically on the same page, but also went down and testified for his friends. He went and testified for his friends. But what was amazing in that conversation was being able to agree to disagree and try and understand where people are coming from. And I felt really privileged to be able to do that, but also that we can calmly come back with facts and say no. But of course, we look at the way the whole Jan 6 thing has been hijacked, which is basically to completely undermine politically how this country is to run, because people want a dictatorship.
Well, as usual, Mark, it's about power and control. We can go back to the witch trials, and we see that wasn't a political movement as much as a land grab. And the reality of it is, then they put it under this pretense or this pretext that that's what it was, and it was the witch trials and this, when it was the government wanting the land. Things like that. And I know that's not the whole story, but in a nutshell, this is what we're going through now, and it's all for control, surveillance, funding. And when you hear, the left is horrible about telegraphing their moves, but the right needs to be smarter about using their words. When they get up on television and they say January 6th was an unprecedented event, we all need to agree very loudly. Absolutely unprecedented. Right. Why was it unprecedented? Because our government generally doesn't murder peaceful protesters when they come to redress their grievances. Wow, that sounds like a totally different statement, because it is. But see, things didn't match up. And that's why the public, even the left, is seeing through this, because things didn't match up. When these police were told the folks that you're going to go arrest may have killed a cop, so treat them with extreme prejudice and be careful. And if anybody gets out of line, pop, you know what to do. Never happened. There was never a fight. There was never a shootout. There was never a manhunt, because one or two people tried to hide, one sick guy that didn't want to die in prison from cancer, and one guy that took off early. That's all I know of, man. Otherwise, everyone else was found at home, peacefully, talking to the FBI. Hey, if you want me to come in and bring my phone, that's fine. I'll see you Monday. Then the FBI come kick their door in on Friday. Over and over, because they wanted to gather the intel. They want to get those videos. They want to get all that evidence, keep it from the public, and put their thumb on these people, so they couldn't say anything, so they couldn't talk to anybody, put them on a gag order. Don't let them tell the truth. But the stories never added up, because they wanted those. We've seen these FBI raids. We've seen the FBI shoot 2 people in the last 6 months for nothing. That's what they wanted from J6ers. That's what they didn't get, because just like on January 6th, when those police were murdering us, we were still better. We didn't murder them. That's the important thing. People need to know the resolve of the American citizen is stronger than this government will ever realize, until it's too late for them. And I can't wait for that.
Well, you may not have to wait long. And the other thing is the last thing, and I one of the biggest moments in your documentary Bloody Hill, when, with respectfully, you're basically in tears saying they just want us to kill each other. They want to stoke this. That's why Biden's launch for his second term. That's why it's so offensive.
Well,
It's so offensive.
You said he was doing the Emperor Palpatine.
Palpatine, yeah.
I thought he was doing straight up Hitler, man. If you put the little black thing on his face,
of course,
dude is standing there like this, extremist. I'm like, dude, the only difference, I'm not even going to the Hitler story. I'm just saying Hitler was a nicer guy than Joe Biden. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. We don't know. I don't quite. Maybe I'll ask you about the nuance of that off camera, but I hear the point of the fact, the way that he is stoking the violence.
He's responsible for murdering Americans systematically. That's genocide, bro. When you class a whole group of citizenry as one thing, who gave him the legal right to make a new classification for people and to put us all in that and to call us all terrorists or insurrectionists or whatever, and then send the forces of evil to kidnap us from our homes and take us to a foreign land and hold us as political hostages indefinitely? This is the domestic violent extremist phrase that we talk about, Mark, with the George Washington University. This is their intent. You can't control a law-abiding citizenry because they're abiding the law. You can't do anything to them. You have to make them the criminals, like Solzhenitsyn said. This is where we are. This is Gulag Archipelago, just like the American flag.
Absolutely.
This is the carryover in history, and if people don't see it, they're going to get run over.
But you've said it, this has been the long game. I mean, I've talked about going to the Parliament of World Religions, and there in the pamphlet as a seminar, I've showed it to you, as you've seen it physically, which is, the rise of white nationalism and the threat to our democracy. So they're running that seminar in August of last year. Washington State University, maybe just over a year and a half, then starts pushing all of this course, etc., which I find rather interesting as a university that decided to project, martyrs and a tribute to Hamas basically on the wall of the university, and then really putting their Jewish students in an awful position, then feeling very, very threatened. And basically, maybe what needs to happen is that all those people that are projecting those kind of things against walls, they ought to go and do the courses that they are actually putting on, because they are the threat.
They really are. They really are, man. Listen, there's so much to say about that, Mark. And the American people, it's our fault for being ignorant and entertained, past the point of understanding or caring. And I think that's really the disconnect that more people have had because of politics, because of the system, because of the way things work. They don't even want to look at it anymore. They just want to live their life and be an American and be free. And they don't understand how close America is to not being America, and that many people in America have already lost their freedom. They are clueless. They don't know what it looks like. They don't have any clue that it could even happen. But I'm telling you, you can ask anybody on the street, what's America about? What's the best thing about America? Freedom. You ask any J6er, are you free? They're going to have a different answer for you, I can tell you right now, because they've experienced what it's like not to be able to maneuver through the courts. The judicial system has been corrupted. Every system that we has, but when you look at these judges, juries, prosecutions, and Mark, you've heard me say it before, it's really no different than other communities of color, take perchance. They've suffered these same things by the same suits, the same judges, the same prosecutions for decades. And a lot of people on our team didn't care. I'm not one of those people. I care. I see it. I understand. Many of us do. But by and large, our own team is not affected by that for whatever reason. So we never really got involved, and we let people get horrendous jail sentences for stupid crimes, for things that didn't matter. Marijuana, 30 years. Are you kidding me right now? Stupid things. And of course, Trump with the First Step Act and all the things that he's done to try to help. Yeah, I get that. Is it the end all, fix all, cure all? No. We have to keep going. But the American people need to understand that we're in the same position. And right now, the left is laughing at us. They're saying, aha, you're getting yours We got ours for so long. It's your turn now. Enjoy. When actually they're doing the bad thing by not teaming up with us right now to fix it for everyone. That's where we need to be. That's what we've been pushing. We're meeting with some BLM leaders, and I know a lot of people shake their head at that, but you know what? A lot of people at the BLM rallies said that they went peacefully, that it got hijacked, and when it went violent, they left. That sounds a lot like J6. It sounds like the same feds. It sounds like Stephen D'Antuono, the director for the FBI that was over the Whitmer, Michigan fiasco, when they did the same setup, the pre-J6 run through, basically. And then he's promoted to DC right before.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you look at these things and the tie-overs and who's involved. The coroner from January 6th ruling on all these people's deaths, saying Roseanne was a drug overdose, is the same coroner that changed the Chauvin decision on George Floyd. And that's why Chauvin is in jail getting stabbed 20 times for 20 years. Because of this same corrupt judge. So when you see the players and you see it's the same people, it's, you know, the top brass down, they're still the guys trying to run the show. And that's more reason to clean all Congress and Senate out and start over.
I agree. It sounds as though we need to bring Oliver Cromwell over there from the past and do exactly the same over there. And then I need him to come back and do exactly the same here in Parliament. But it's interesting because when I was talking to Patrick, and again, I just want to give credit to him, he said that in regard to the prison system. And I know that you've had those conversations with him, as I have in the past. And it was very interesting to see that. But what was good in that conversation is that I said, no, I acknowledge that. But let's look at how the Clintons, what they did in regard to the prison system during that time. And he turned around and said, yeah, absolutely, I agree. I will give you that. Look at how we can have that discourse. We say that we're on two different sides of the aisle, but we can come together and have that conversation.
Let me tell you what, that's the importance of bringing back civil debate. You don't have to agree. You don't have to come to terms. You have to talk it out. You just have to know where you come from and know not to be scared of each other. I mean, Stop Hate started in 92 with an acronym, Start Turning Off Prejudice. Attitudes through education. We shouldn't prejudge each other. Hey, if I know who you are and you declare yourself my enemy, I'm going to treat you as such. You're my enemy. That's fine. I don't need to know. I don't need research. But otherwise, I need to have conversations with you. We need to see what makes you tick, what goes back and forth. If you're my enemy, I want to figure it out. I want to resolve it. There's no reason for us to fight. I have nothing against anyone as far as, you know, personally. But there's issues that affect us all. I want to give everybody an example. Murder. Why is murder illegal? Because it's bad? I don't know. Because everybody said collectively, we can't do that. Murder is wrong. And we're going to put that on the list of things that we cannot do. Well, what's the difference? I mean, as a society, don't we dictate what's right and wrong? So why do people get upset with us when we want to protect the life of the unborn? And to say that, in our opinion, that's murder. We're able to have that opinion and to express that and to have conversations about it. So maybe you'll understand. And maybe at the end of the day, you could understand that they're already a human too. They're not just a clump of cells or anything. Maybe a little bit of research and education and those conversations that are a little harder can open your eyes to that. That's the same thing with January 6th. And unfortunately, so many people had their eyes and ears closed for so long that it's taken us 3 years to get to this point. But I can tell you with the new film, J6, A True Timeline, the guys that worked on it did a fantastic job. It's a really great team. It's a really great film. It was well put together. It's informative. And the timeline is what makes the difference. We've been shot video scenes at random from every direction, from every side of the building, from every different time of day. And everyone has this stuff jumbled in their brain. This puts it in order and lets you understand. It will show you literally 5 screens with Trump at the ellipse and with Pence inside and with the east side and the west side all at the same time. So you can see what's going on where and really get a good understanding. So J6, A True Timeline is available at open.inc, I-N-K, Open Inc. And everybody, it's free. Please go watch, share. It's an hour and 6 minutes. I don't know how that 106 worked that way. Just a providential thing. But it's an hour and 6 minutes that everybody can watch. It's a history lesson. You don't have to like it to watch it. You just need to know about what happened, and you're never going to get a better story, a better representation of the facts, not heavily narrated, not biased, not a Trump film, like I said, not a Biden film, just a film that shows what happened that day from different perspectives, the body cam, the CCTV, the public footage, what was happening at the ellipse, what was happening inside during the proceedings, to see what was happening outside and how it affects each other. And I think when people can take this as a starting point, as a learning film, as a living document almost, and add to it. And what we encourage people on social media, look, if you're there on January 6th and you've got a story, put your story in the timeline. Just make a post, put the movie, and say, at 2:23, I was right here, and this is what I saw. We want it all together. And look, the director, Paul, said that if people submit worthy information that we weren't aware of or an angle that we didn't have, he will update the film. So I want people to know it's a community project, community gathered. You know, me and Daniel didn't do all this by ourselves for 3 years. We've had everyone in the J6 community feeding us. So everybody says, oh, Stop Hate has more information than anyone. Yeah, because we have more friends in the J6 community. Basically, that's it. Any reporter could have done what we did. They just wouldn't. And I'm a carpenter from East Texas. I'm not even supposed to be doing this stuff. So I'm ready to get back to my life, get all our people free from January 6th, make sure this never happens again, get the bad guys and put them in jail. We don't want violence. We don't want a civil war. We don't want any of that. Everything can be peaceful, but everything needs to be legal and ethical. And right now, our country is so far from either one of those things.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. The country of laws is lawless. David, we're going to end, and I'll just say what a privilege it is to talk to you. Sorry about suddenly diving out of camera when you realize your computer, the power is not on, it's about to run out of juice. So I do apologize for this, suddenly these technical things as I'm ironing out. I'm ironing it.
Black. Great.
But thank you, my friend. Where can people find you?
So stophate.com has a connect button and then a follow us button for all the social medias. I suggest people go to stophate.com/J6 for all the calls to action, the research tabs, the ideas for Congress. That's a new page that we just put on. I hope people go look at the ideas from Congress. It's under the J6 tab. So just do the J6, click on that, and you'll see some of the ideas that Congress keeps telling us we can't do anything. But we can. There's stuff that they can do that they won't do, that they hadn't done for 3 years. We need to call their hand on that. But stophate.com/support is where people can support our work. And Mark, to be honest, for 3 years, we haven't asked for much support because the J6ers have needed it so much. And we've done all this. As you know, I'm a carpenter. I do it out of my pocket as much as possible. Very little help. And it's a labor of love. It's like a glorified hobby. But I want people to know that more support means more work. And, you know, I've got a team that I do pay some of these people to work. And if I had more, I could do more. I do as much as I can. And I think we're doing really good. But any support is greatly appreciated. I hate to even ask, but there's a lot of big things going on. And, you know, stophate.com/support. Check it out. Thank if you want to support. But mainly the calls to action for the J6ers at stophate.com/J6. There's about 15 or 20 calls to action, from prayer to letter writing. Contact your senator or congressman, sing for freedom, go to our Department of Defense and find their fundraisers, the Mail Project. You know, these guys' number one thing is to get letters, or buy the American Gulag Chronicles book, Letters.
Absolutely.
The first book we put out, Letters from Prison, or the second book, Art of Confinement, where these guys really kind of teach you how they've learned to deal with this over such a long time, the art in that. And Tim Rivers and Murray Goodwin did another fantastic.
It's absolutely fantastic.
The show with the other day was amazing. He is so eloquent about the way he explains everything. Man, I really enjoyed that show, Mark, more than you know. It was
well, bless you for that. It's a real privilege. And I'm going to take us out now, David. I do apologize, because then we can get within the hour, and you know how digitally that just makes things easy for us. And it's such a privilege to talk to you, and especially today, an anniversary we don't really want to have, but an anniversary for reasons of expressing support and expressing the issues and getting the truth out there is really important. So thank you, my friend.
Patriot, brother. Everybody remember Patriot Day, and we'll see you again next year.
And bless you. Talk to you soon. Take care. bless.